There's just something about the way this life is, where pain and joy and love.
Thank you again for joining.
Absolutely, of course.
Could you take a second to just introduce yourself?
Totally, yes. So my name is Gatton, which the easiest way that I can explain how to pronounce that is Latin with the G, because everyone gets it wrong. People are always like Gavin, Gatlin, I get anything with the G. But it's Gatton, and I'm an artist from Tampa, Florida. Grew up, born and raised Tampa, Florida, on the beach pretty much my whole life. I moved to Cleveland, Tennessee, which is this tiny little small college town 2 hours from Nashville, to go to Lee University. I studied communications and I'll graduate in July. And basically the artist journey for me, I never wrote songs actually, believe it or not, until I think it was like 2.5 years ago. And so it was kind of this specific season that I walked through that was, that I think a lot of people have been through, of just different, it was kind of just a combination of a bunch of different things all at the same exact time. It was loss and grief and depression and kind of a loss of self altogether.
Mm-hmm.
And which turned out to be the biggest blessing of my life, because it cultivated the songwriter inside of me that I didn't know existed before. And I look back now, hindsight's definitely 2020, and I realized, wow, like that serves such a specific purpose in really crafting who I have become. And it's a completely different person. And I think a lot of people have that story. And so through that situation, I really learned how to, one of my songs is When Scars Become Art, which is kind of like an anthem of mine, is to just find the beautiful story or the artistic something in the painful situations that you've been through, because I think there's always something there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not always easy to find when you're in the midst of it. It's easier when you get out of it. And so that's kind of been my journey, is just constantly trying and seeking to find the good in all the painful situations and the newfound strength that you get out of those situations. And my brand overall, I would say, is to further and make people aware of the concept that we as human beings are more the same than we are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do that in every way I can artistically, whether that's through my music, my lyrics, my melodies, or I do a lot of different visual creative directing things on Instagram. And so I try to cultivate showing just very visually different looking people from different backgrounds and different circumstances, and just putting them in the same room in the same color or whatever it is. And kind of the juxtaposition between their differences and their similarities, and how we really can unite. And I think it's easier said than done, but I think that's what I try to portray in a subtle, I don't want to have to say that right out. I want to try to subtly portray that in everything that I do.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you always been a vocalist?
I have. I sang. Ever since I can remember, I've always been singing church that I grew up in, and just singing all around. And so I was always the person who was like, oh, I suck at songwriting. I'm never going to do that. It's just not my thing at all. And then it started, which is just, so ironic. People always ask, like, do you songwrite? I'm like, no, it's not my thing. Sorry. And which is hilarious, because it's like my identity at this point. But yeah, from as long as I can remember, I've been singing.
You're a good composer too, because I noticed that you play
Thank
on
you.
the piano and you play different instruments. What do you play besides the piano?
Just piano.
Oh,
I wish,
okay.
I wish I played more. I'm not musically inclined at all. That's
not true, because you have a ton of people who love your music.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you. It's funny. It's kind of ironic, because I really would not consider, I go to a school where it's very, very music heavy. So not a lot of people are majoring in music, but everyone is stellar at music, like just naturally good. And so for me, honestly, I'm truly one of the underdogs at my school. Like I put out music the most, but I have no like good background in like music theory or any of that stuff compared to what everybody else has. And so I've always felt like so behind in that way. But I have had a few influences, thankfully, that have kind of taught me the art of faking it till you make it, basically, and learning how to at least take what you have and like skyrocket it, even if you don't have a lot of like knowledge of it, to know how to utilize your gifts specifically as best as you possibly can. And so that's what I've tried to do with piano, is just try new interesting chords, even if I don't even know what the chords are. Just try new things constantly to make myself look better than I actually am, honestly. Pretty much. But I appreciate it.
I think the reason why, or one of the reasons why I really fell in love with your music was because you have a lot of gospel influences. I used to be a gospel singer, so.
Oh, no way.
Yeah,
That's so cool.
I love the choral parts of your songs, and then you have a very soulful voice as well. So how long have you been singing gospel style music for?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And not a lot of people notice that, but so I grew up in the church, in a Christian church, and I was in choir when I was young, and I stopped for a while, then I was in choir in high school, and I think that I've tried to take different influences, because my favorite type of genre would be ballady type Adele, just sad boy, honestly. And I have taken that along with some gospel choir choral type stuff and harmonies and all that stuff, along with tiny little bit of R&B, and I want to move into that a little bit more. But I've tried to just form that together. But I have been like singing church music ever since I've been a baby, like on the stage pretty much. So I think that taking those different influences, I try to craft, because I just don't want to, my biggest thing is to just not sound like anybody else. When I first started writing, so I went to California after, it was the end of my sophomore year of college, and it was when I went through just all that loss, and I had lost different friendships and relationships, and I was so confused, because I think I always identified as somebody's best friend or the person that got this opportunity. I sang at this event. Like, I never was just me. I never was just Gatton, which sounds cliche, but I really did not know myself beyond like associated with somebody else. So when I lost everything that I was associated with, it was amazing, but it wasn't in the moment. And I went to California for a month and I went to San Francisco, but we stayed in Sacramento, Nevada City. And we were staying with some family, and I'd never been. And so I was just like trying to figure out a way to utilize this pain and somehow like heal and process and just think through it all. And so that's where the songwriting thing came. And so I remember saying to myself, I was like, I'm not going to put this out. This is just for my own personal like healing or whatever. And then I would post little things here and there on my story or whatever, and people would start to respond and be like, oh my gosh, I totally relate with this. That's so understandable. I get that. I've been there before. And so I was like, well, maybe there is something here. So that's where When Scars, my whole EP, When Scars Part, came from, was that time of just figuring out how to like do something beyond just sitting in this pain. And so I just did a lot of research. I think I had one song out before, but it was very like, I just didn't take it seriously. It was just like a little thing that I did. But I did a lot of research on how to put things out and like the full EP process. Then I was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And so at the end of that summer, I started to it's just been all on my own, which has been really necessary, because I don't think that I had a lot of drive before. And I think that that painful situation really pushed me. And so I just really utilized my time to research how to distribute, how to get on playlists, how to be heard by any and everybody that you need to be heard by. And I constantly was just grinding it out. And I released the EP end of November. And then from then on, it's been like super just kind of guns a-blazing. Like, I've just been trying to be very consistent, because I think one of people's biggest issues, at least where I'm around people that are doing it completely on their own, is that they just are like one-hit wonders. Basically, they'll just put one thing out, and I think it's just a matter of maybe not always having the right people in their corner. I've been so blessed too. I've had a lot of people that have championed me really well, and also given me really tough love and told me what sucks just right off the bat. And I think that's really necessary, to have those people that are just like, yeah, that's really bad. It's not clever lyrically, like it's not good melodically. And so I've had a lot of those people. And I think that's what's kept me going, is recognizing always, I mean, it doesn't matter if you are Beyonce or just starting out, like there's always room for improvement and always room to try something new or to take a risk. And so ever since like about 2 years ago, in California was when I just started putting these out and researching and all that.
Now, do you do all of your production, mixing, and mastering as well?
I don't. I wish I could say I did. And people ask me that a lot. I'm like, oh, that would be so badass if I could say that I did that. But no, I do not. I have a friend of mine, but he's like my producer too, that we kind of started. I had a really tough situation at the beginning of my EP when it was about to come out, and just a flaky producer, and it was not a big deal. It's whatever. And I learned a lot through that for sure. And so the EP was actually done super last minute because I didn't have a lot of time, and I already released the release date. And so this friend of mine, he was like just wanting to start out as a producer, and he was like, well, I could try it for you if you want me to. And he was actually really good. And ever since I trust him, he trusts me, he knows what I want, and we communicate really well. And so we went to the same school. He just graduated and lives in DC now. So I just record with another buddy of mine, and then we just send everything over to him and kind of communicate through there. But yeah, I do, like, I normally play the piano on it, and then I am very nitpicky on all of my stuff. And so every last like run and vocal lick and harmony and guitar lick and everything is like will be perfected by me, just like by me saying it. I'll just say what I want. I can't actually do it.
What about your videos and your photography? Is that all your creative direction?
It is. Yes, it is. I am also a creative director. And so basically for me, what that means is I schedule these photo shoots and video shoots, and I do it for other people too, for dancers and for different artists. And for my own personal use, it was a lot of experimentation. And so I would just get, at my school, it's like overwhelming how many creative people there are. And so a lot of these people are just super willing to do whatever. So I make it a point to just get different people from different sororities or fraternities or different, we have a lot of different choirs and music groups, so from different places. And I'll make an intentional effort to get people that don't know each other and that look different and that are very different. And I'll just put them in a room together for wherever we are for 2 hours in the same color. And I'll be like, can you like lean your head on their shoulder and grab their arm like romantically? And, it's funny because people like so quickly just get to know it. That like completely epitomizes my whole brand, is that we are more the same than different. And I think that when you put people in those uncomfortable situations, they very quickly are like, oh, cool. Like we have that in common. Let's hang or let's connect or whatever. And so with that, that's kind of just been like artistic liberty and just trying to like experiment before I actually have to like do it to make money. And so I've just been trying to see like what works and what doesn't work. And with the videos too, those are all like my ideas. And the videos have like specific symbolism and stories behind them that also tie into the songs. I think they're kind of hard to, kind of like a Solange. I don't know if you know Solange.
Yeah, I love Solange.
Yeah, she's a big like influence of mine in the sense that like a lot of her stuff is like very ambiguous, and you're constantly like, oh, I really don't know what that means, but you just keep watching until you can get it. And maybe it's always up for your own interpretation as well. And so I try to do that to give you a little something, but also just keep you guessing. Songwriters need to cultivate songwriting as a mindset and not just, and I think I talked a little bit about this in my bio that I sent you, but they need to cultivate songwriting as a mindset and not just like you sit down and songwrite. And so what she meant by that was, she was like, go to a, like the lobby of a hospital at 3 a.m. in the morning and overhear a conversation. That's a song. Just like have a conversation with your grandma on the phone. That's a song. Go on a hike. That's a song. So I really tried to implement that in this season coming out of the painful trials that I went through. And I was on a walk one day at a park, and it was the most gorgeous day. Nature is where I find most of my inspiration. I always am hiking just to try to find new perspectives that have yet to be discovered. And so I was looking up at the sky, and it was like the bluest, most vibrant sky. And then I look down, and the first person that I see was in all gray, head to toe. And then right after that, 2 people passed me, and they're complaining about who knows what. And I just start to observe all around me, and everyone is, on their phones, or they look grumpy or just mad at the world. And so I was just thinking, like, there is always something to be thankful for and to celebrate. And there's always so many intricate facets of this life. And somehow people are still on their phones or just finding something to complain about. And so that was where the line, there's blue in the sky every day, but all they want to see is the gray. It was just like, there's always something, but somehow you guys are still going to find something to complain about. And so it's interesting because the melody of that song is more of a bop, kind of like chill and just easy to listen to. But in actuality, when I was writing it, was a little bit of a bitter song of just like, everyone's just going to exist, but I'm going to live. Like, I'm going to show you, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to do more than just complain about life. But I did, out of that song, I wanted people to grasp the point, like, there's so much to this life. Like, don't miss it. Come on. There's so many things. There's so many beautiful, intricate details about pain and about joy and the juxtaposition of love and loss and how it just somehow harmoniously works together perfectly. And we can't miss that. You just can't.
Now you have that song, or that I think is your most played song on Spotify, correct? Or different?
Actually, when Scars Become Art is, they're very close though. They're like almost the exact same amount of streams. But when Scars Become Art was like, that was another one that was super special to me. And that's kind of just like a love/sad song. But they just exist as, I would say, maybe like commercially the most popular, because it's gotten on multiple of those. Ryan has played it in different, there's other people that do wave type videos like him that have played it too. So I think like,
how did you get it on these playlists? Because that's one area
so
I don't understand is how to get their music onto playlists. So how did you do that?
Yeah. That's a good question. I think that's one thing that a lot of people seem to struggle with. And I did a lot of research right when I was first releasing my music. With Ryan and all of them, I, believe it or not, I actually had, who was it? I had my mom from her account, and then my sister, and then I think one of my accounts, I had like another account, literally just comment on his posts a lot of times. Like you have to be very consistent. And so constantly just say like, hey, because those type of people look for song suggestions 24/7.
Yeah.
So they're always like ready to listen to somebody new. And so my mom, she would comment and be like, check out the song they just exist by Gatton. But I mean, I probably for like a month or so, we did that pretty consistently, maybe almost every day would comment on it. And I remember thinking like, a lot of times when I do these things, I'm like, oh, it's never gonna pay off. But it normally pays off a lot later than you think. You just have to be consistent about it. And so with that, I gave up maybe after a month of doing it. And then I remember like a month later, one of my friends just tagged me, and I didn't even see it for like a day. One of my friends like tagged me in this video, and they were like, I'm pretty sure this is you. And I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck? And so then from that, then another guy, Nolan O'Meara, I think is his name. He found it. He's a ocean type guy too. And then there was like 2 other ones. And so with the playlist stuff, it is a very simple process, but it's incredibly tedious. And so basically, you just look up on Spotify keywords that you think your music will fit under playlist wise. And so for when I did like when Scars Become Art, honestly, keywords would be like sad, depressing, songs on a rainy day, songs that make you want to cry, all this kind of stuff, depressed, like it's just ridiculous. And so you look up those playlists 24/7 and you just look at the curator. And if Spotify is the curator or created the playlist, then you have to do that like months in advance of releasing the song. But if it's just a random person, you look them up on social media, reach out to them. And a lot of them are normally used to that. So they'll just be like, yeah, sure. And some of them want you to pay. I don't pay, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that if it's like an actual person. I think that it is just also just all that consistency. So for that, I vowed to do like submit to 30 playlists a day for like a month. And that was it wasn't hard. It was just like time consuming and annoying. Yeah. And so I did that, and it didn't pay off for a while. And I remember thinking like, well, that was a waste of time. And then I don't know where when Scars Become Art just kept going up and up and up. And so, and I say that I'm not signed with anybody. I'm literally just doing this on my own. So it's so possible. And there's so many talented people that I hear that just I don't think have the resources or the tools to know how to do that. And I think it's just, you've just got to be diligent in researching on your own. Spotify, I think, is another place. There's like multiple different websites that you can submit, and it's like kind of a pool of songs. And then playlist curators can like pick from that pool if they want to, if they like it or whatever. So you just have to research and study up and continually find new ways. I think too, you have to think about the innovative ways. So like commercials, shows, movies, that's harder to get into. But even if you like know a guy that's in that realm, just like you have to just reach out as much as you possibly can.
What has been your largest success with your career so far?
Let me think about that one.
And it could be anything. It could be something that you're proud of. It could be on the business side, the more creative side, people that you've worked with, performances you've done, anything.
Okay. I think my largest success is just as a whole, those that can find their own story in my lyrics. I think that often it's easy for artists or for anybody in the music industry or business side of anything to get wrapped up in the streams, to get wrapped up in the likes and the numbers and all that kind of stuff. And you have to come to the recognition that no amount of streams, it just doesn't matter how many. Like I remember thinking, like, once I get to 1 million overall streams, done, set, I'm famous and I'm gonna be content and everything's gonna be fine and perfect and dandy. Well, I'm at 2 million now. I'm like, I still struggle. I'm still sad sometimes. I still am at writer's block. Like, I still don't know what I'm doing with my life. So you have to get out of that perception of thinking that one thing is going to just solve all your issues. And so I've recognized, thankfully, that those things are just so not fulfilling. And I think what really is fulfilling is those people, especially people that are different than me, that can somehow find their story in my story. And I try to give enough freedom in my lyrics and in my melodies to allow that, so it's not too specific. I want people to be able to like hear that, because I mean, the people that I relate to most artist wise would be like a Adele, because Someone Like You to me is my favorite song of all time, because I'm like, oh my gosh, everyone has lost somebody, whether that's death or that's like grief of just a significant other that broke up with you. Whatever it is, like, we're all looking for someone like somebody that we lost. It's the most genius thing ever. And it's the most simple concept, but it was put in such an eloquent way that anybody in the whole world is just like, oh my gosh, yep, I've been there, totally. And so I want that, like, people who can just cry to my lyrics or listen and just feel something beyond what words can describe. I think that's my biggest.
Your music is very poetic.
Thank you.
Do you also write poetry on the side, or is that how you got started with the songwriting?
No, I don't write poetry. I write a lot. I don't think I could classify it as poetry. I love metaphors. I love analogies and symbolism and imagery in writing in general. And so I just constantly write my observations of life in general and of people and human beings. And I think I'm just such a thinker. I'm always thinking about things and always like trying to deepen my perspective and self-awareness. And so my writing maybe almost is poetic, but not purposefully. And so I just am constantly journaling and writing little observations, I would say. But I really appreciate that. I really try to emulate a poetic style.
It's lovely. Honestly, it's very lovely.
Thank you so much. I have a journal of goals of what some people would say are far-fetched goals, and I just think are going to happen one day. Like, collabing with Ed Sheeran and writing with just random different producers and artists and selling out stadium arenas and all that kind of stuff. And I do believe that in some capacity those things will happen. I don't know that, I think now too, I've come to the recognition that also is not going to be like the most fulfilling thing ever. And so I don't predict it as much. I definitely think music will be the pinnacle part of anything that I do. And hopefully, I know that I will be able to tie music and the creative aesthetic together. And I just don't know what that looks like necessarily. I would like to say that in the next few years, I would love to do some type of tour that I'm completely over, like creatively, and also like it's just my kind of tour. But I don't want to predict too much. I definitely think that music is going to be the pinnacle of everything that I do. I would say probably, but that's probably all I can say.
That's all right. How do you stay consistent with everything? How do you stay consistent with business, even your schooling, the music, the creative side of everything?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that, as everyone knows, you make time for what you want to make time for. And I think a lot of people are waiting around for the future, and the future never comes, in my opinion. And I did that for a long time. I thought, well, once I graduate, I'll be able to put out music. And once I graduate, I'll be an artist. And once I graduate, I'll get in the creative realm. And I was just really hit with an urgency of like, no, the time is now, for sure. Especially I had all the resources and opportunities. And so I think it was just me waiting around for motivation that was just never going to come. I think you have to value discipline over motivation, because motivation is very fleeting and it's wishy-washy, and sometimes you just don't feel motivated. But you have to implement a discipline in your life that's just beyond like relying on motivation or relying on affirmation too. And so I do, however, with that being said, like I said, you make time for what you might want to make time for. And with that, something has to give. For me specifically, I'm just not good at school. Like I don't have good grades. I don't try. I'm sure I would be good if I tried. I'm just not good. Mm-hmm. And so that has given, you know what I mean? I don't have a great GPA. I don't have any honors or scholarship or anything like that. And so it doesn't bother me because I don't value it that much. But I would say that's the thing that gave. I think to having just a really solid group of people around you. And I think that who you surround yourself, you will become. And I was not surrounding myself with great people for a long time, and I was totally becoming them. And they were just apathetic, lazy, just didn't have any motivation or drive for life in general. And that's exactly who I became, which is not me to my core. Mm. But then I finally came to my senses and I surrounded myself with people who are better than me, which I think is so vital. It doesn't matter what it is, whether it's musically or academically or just intelligent or wisdom or physically, like working out or whatever. Just surround yourself with people that are better than you, that can just spark betterment in you. And that's what's really sustained me. It's such a solid group of people that have continually furthered my growth as a human being, because they love me enough to not lie when they know that I'm not on the right track.
That's awesome. Yeah. For you, can you tell us a little bit about how you've struggled and some things that you've learned from your greatest struggles within the music industry? Or actually, no, just in life. Why don't you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, totally. It's a great question. I have struggled a lot, so it's a great question for me. So when I was talking about that whole situation that I went through, it was a loss of one specific friendship that I went through that was so toxic, and I was so unaware of it. And this person was very subtly just like breaking who I was and saying like, you suck at songwriting, you should probably just give it up. Like, you're really not a good singer. Like, I just don't think it's your thing. And I think they painted it and I viewed it as constructive criticism. And so I thought, oh, they're making me better. Like, this is just like, they're growing me. They're trying to be tough love. But in reality, it was just a case of like intimidation from my perspective. And so I was completely broken. And then this person cut me off. So it was like, they trashed me and then they cut me off for no reason. And so it just was, I was very broken and confused. And one thing, this person was also a musician and a very well-respected musician in the realm that I was in. Mm-hmm. One very, very vital lesson that I learned from that is that just because somebody has done you wrong, or that you had a toxic situation or a toxic relationship, does not mean that they're a bad person. And you can't be narrow-minded enough to think that they are. Really, really hard lesson to learn, and a very vital one, because I think someone's always going to do you wrong. And some people may never see that side of them. So for instance, it was like, we had such a toxic friendship, but no one ever saw that side of that person. They were just the most well-respected. And so I had to just suck it up and be like, because everyone was like, oh my gosh, they're the best. They're so great. They're so nice. Like, such a good singer. And I was like, yeah, they are. You're right. And you just, right. So you just have to like learn that it's not all about you. And it's not like, just because you had a bad situation doesn't mean that they're just a bad person overall. And I think too, recognize that someone else's success is not your failure, and that your success is not their failure. And so I think for a long time I thought to myself, oh, they have more streams, that means I suck. Or, oh, they're like getting more opportunities. Man, what am I doing? And it has nothing to do with me. It's like, take yourself out of it. Like, just learn to support your people. And even if you're not close to them, just like learn to champion people. There's no point in comparing yourself, because you're your own person. You should never want to be a copy of anyone anyway. Mm-hmm. And so I think I've run into that a lot. A lot of people I feel like have not been supportive of me, because I think that they were discontent where they were, and they wanted to be doing what I was doing, but they weren't. And so it was really hard for them to support me. And I think it's a maturity thing to recognize, like, you may have more streams than me, or you may be on tour, or you may be a better songwriter, but like, I'm going to champion you anyway. It has nothing to do with me at all. And so those are probably the two main lessons that I learned. And I think those both are very important lessons to learn in the music industry, because it can be very vicious, incredibly competitive. And I think a lot of people equate someone else's success to your failure. For instance, like even like a Nicki Minaj and Cardi B situation. Like people, I've heard so many times people are like, oh, poor Nicki, Cardi stole her thunder. I'm like, it has nothing to do with, they're both in the rap realm, but they're both amazing, whatever, or killer at what they do in their own way. So I'm like, why, people are going to put you up against people all the time. And so you have to find it within yourself to recognize, like, what I do has nothing to do with anybody else. I am good on my own. And those are very important and very hard to learn, but important.
That's awesome. One of the biggest goals for Finessed Media is for us to be able to take the stories that you've learned from and others to learn from them.
Totally.
So we have about 15 minutes, so can you spend a little bit of time giving 3 gems to artists that are aspiring to be where you're at?
Yes, I can. Okay. My first one would be, I think the most important thing that you can do, especially as a new artist that is not quite sure of who you are maybe, is to implement newness all the time. And what I mean by that is new podcasts, new songs, new artists, go to new parks, watch new movies, listen to new sermons if you're a Christian, whatever it is. I think that constantly feeding yourself new things is vital for the consistent and continual flow of your creativity. So for me, I probably 2 or 3 months ago, I made a goal just for my days to do 2 new podcasts a day, 10 new songs a day on my Spotify Discover Weekly. And with that, I would try to focus on 1 new artist a day and maybe just get to know them a little bit more and try to learn something from them. I would listen to a sermon a day. I would listen to, I love TED Talks, which is kind of like a podcast. 1 new TED Talk a day. Whatever you can fit, whatever your capacity is. I feel like I have a pretty big capacity. I can take in a lot in one day, but if you have a smaller one, just listen to 1 new thing a day. I went to new parks all the time. I think just constantly giving yourself new things and trying to do new things that are in your realm and also not in your realm. So I listen to TED Talks. I'll listen about the psychology of depression, and I'll listen about laughter and joy. And podcasts, I'll listen to Oprah, and I'll listen to Bob Goff. Not a lot of people know who he is, or Brene Brown. She's a great author. A lot of different people from different walks of life and different perspectives that just can really help you. Even just one little thing that they say in a podcast, you can write it down. Next point off of that would be writing every single thing down that you possibly can. It's just, you say you're going to write it when you get home, or you say you're going to, I'll write that down later. You just don't. You forget it in 2 seconds, especially if it's a melody or a line. It comes to you right away. You have to get it that very moment. And so getting in the habit of writing everything down, my notes in my phone are just ridiculous. I mean, people would be like, oh, he's schizophrenic and he has no rhyme or reason to anything. But it's because every single thing that comes to my mind, whether it's in a TED Talk or a podcast or a sermon or a new TV show that I'm watching, whatever it is, I just write it down immediately. Or even songs. I think you can take inspiration from other songwriters. And so writing everything down and recording all your melodies, just documenting everything. I think the third thing I would say is I think everyone needs a mission statement. And I think that you should use this as a compass for every decision that you make. And I heard this on a podcast a while ago, and this lady was talking about how she has a mission statement, and she was saying, you have to have a mission statement, because if you don't, you will just succumb to anybody's anything, and you will compromise who you are, and you'll compromise your beliefs or who you are as a person. And you'll just slowly take these tiny little pivots away from who you are, and eventually you won't even recognize yourself anymore, because there's an analogy, and I think it's a book. It's called Death by Paper Cuts, which is basically saying it's these little tiny things that seemingly aren't doing anything at all, but you die eventually because you're just it was just slow and you couldn't see it at all. So you weren't doing anything about it. And so I think having that mission statement, for me, it's recognizing, or it's cultivating the concept that we as humans are more the same than different, and encouraging people to find the beauty in their pain. And so literally tangibly write it down so you can go back to that in every new situation that you, or every new, I guess, circumstance that you get in, or new opportunity that you're handed or whatever. Just recognize that, like, is this going to further my mission statement? Is this going to further my vision? Because, and Oprah, I'm a huge Oprah fan. She talks about this a lot, and she said, like, she would even have to turn down people that were huge in the industry, especially early on in her career, because she recognized it's just not going to further where I want to go and what my mission is.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if it's like, even it's Oprah Winfrey, even if it's like collaborating with a huge artist that you love, if it's not going to fit in your mission statement, you can't do it. And so I think those are the main three things. I think the mission statement maybe even should be the first one, to just always have that. And that grows with time. I think subscribe to the YouTube channel would help me specifically. Follow on Spotify, that always helps, because Spotify is actually my main source of income now, which is amazing, but it definitely needs to like continue.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I know, it's incredible.
I
thank you. I really appreciate that. I never thought that I thought it would come eventually, but I didn't think it would come this quickly. And so I'm not really, I do little side jobs here and there, but it is my main source of income, which is great. So things like following on Spotify, just those little things actually really do make a difference, and following on Instagram and just kind of keeping up. I have a song coming out tonight, actually, and it's called Waves. And it's one that I advertised a while ago. And it's a sadder type healing restoration song, just reflectively poetic, if you will. And I think the main would be Instagram. That's like what I'm on the most. I do have a TikTok, not my favorite thing, but I'm trying to be relevant. I'm like, maybe if it'll help the brand, then I'll try. I have a TikTok, Instagram, yeah, I think that's everything, and YouTube and Spotify and Apple Music and all the streaming platforms. But I think Instagram is probably the main, where you can get all the updates on everything that's coming out and the artistic things and all that kind of stuff.
Cool. Is there anything else that you'd like for your viewers to know about you, or for you to say to anyone that's listening?
I think I just would like everyone to know that there is a creator and a creative inside of you, especially if you're questioning that. I think that oftentimes it comes from very unexpected situations and unexpected circumstances. I think that you just have to constantly do the things that are going to make you better. Just as a word of encouragement for anyone who's listening, just recognize that there is something that you have to offer, but it is up to you to cultivate it and craft it to be the best version that it can be. And there's always room to grow. You can never stay complacent, because I think, honestly, there's no such thing as complacency. I think it's progression or regression. So I think you're either moving forward or you're moving backward. And so I would just say, continually find new, innovative ways to grow and to be better, and recognize within yourself, without anyone else having to tell you, that you are good enough and that you have a voice that somebody needs to hear and somebody can relate with.
I love your music and your message
Thank
as
you
well.
so much.
Yeah,
I really appreciate that.
You've given a lot of great advice. So I think that a lot of people will learn a lot from you, which is awesome, because you have a great story.
Thank you.
Tell.